Hello everyone and welcome to the Council of Elrond. I'm Dave and with me is my co-host Johnny, and today we are joined by Dan from Voice of Geekdom on YouTube to discuss everything we saw in the official Rings of Power trailer that featured during the Super Bowl Sunday. Myself and Johnny will be doing some of the regular reacting, but we've drafted in one of the big boys, Dan, to give his expertise on what's going on. So first of all, if you guys haven't yet subscribed to Voice of Geekdom on YouTube, please go ahead and do that. You can do that while you're listening to this podcast right now. Dan does so many great videos on the lore of Tolkien and my personal favourites, the Silmarillion Explained. This is a series which actually myself and Johnny featured in for the voices of Curufin and Celegorm, so go check that out. We absolutely boss it.
We were class.
Yeah, we were amazing. But we'll drop all the links to Dan's socials and the YouTube account in the podcast description. But yeah, welcome, Dan. It's great to finally get you on the show.
Thank you very much, Dave. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's like we said off air. It's been a long time coming. But before we actually kick off, would you like to tell the listeners what you do and where we can find you?
Yeah, well, as you say, I'm a YouTuber. I do lore and I do a little bit of kind of YouTube podcasting style sort of videos, pre-recorded, and live streams every 2 weeks on my channel as well. And I'm covering the Silmarillion in depth, as you say. It's kind of probably the thing that my channel is best known for is that series. At least it's the most requested thing. People are always waiting on the next chapter. There are people who are halfway through the Silmarillion that have been waiting on me to finish the series for a year and a half now.
It's like a bit of a George R. R. Martin situation there.
Well, not exactly. I think I will finish it. It won't be quite like Martin, but
yeah. But of course, that will be of huge interest as well to people who are getting ready for this Rings of Power series and people who are excited about it, because we know that a lot of it's going to be it's going to be taking place mainly in the Second Age, but maybe we'll get some stuff from the First Age as well. So that's all Silmarillion time. So obviously people that are getting ready for the series will be tuning in to hear more about what was going on back then.
Well, I hope so, yeah. That was certainly part of the thinking behind doing the series that I've been doing. I will say that there's been kind of in the news in the Tolkien fandom recently, there's been a lot of speculation on what the licensing might include for this new series and whether they have any rights at all to the Silmarillion, or whether it's on a case-by-case basis, and whether they've been negotiating with the Tolkien estate for different bits of material.
Right.
But we certainly have seen bits of Silmarillion material already. The very first thing that we saw was the Two Trees of Valinor, of course, which
yeah.
It was definitely the primary source for that is in the Silmarillion. So
yeah, it is interesting because I didn't know that until quite recently. Isn't it the rights? They have the rights to the appendices, which is about 150 pages at the end of The Return of the King. But I just assumed that they had the Silmarillion as well, and I assumed that we were going to be getting flashbacks to Morgoth and all that kind of carry on, but I don't know now. It seems to be up in the air. But yeah, that picture of Valinor seemed to inspire some hope for us that want to see a lot of the Silmarillion in this show.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is also mentioned in the Lord of the Rings, of course. In the past, the way that the movie licenses have kind of been structured and so on is the stories that different license holders have been licensed to tell have been kind of limited to the source material that is considered the primary source for that story, which is to say you can't tell the story of Beren and Luthien in the Lord of the Rings, because that's referenced in the Lord of the Rings. Aragorn gives us a poem about it. Sam sort of summarizes the story later on. But clearly the primary source for that material is the Silmarillion. So because you've got the license to the Lord of the Rings, it doesn't mean that you can tell the story of Beren and Luthien. Right. This seems to be working a little bit differently. This seems to be structured differently to how the movie deals have been done, because clearly they do have some wiggle room to include other sorts of references that are not typically considered Lord of the Rings references or Hobbit references. So we won't get a repeat of the situation like we had in the Hobbit movies where the blue wizards are referenced, but Ian McKellen's Gandalf tells us that he can't remember their names. So
there were two others.
Yeah, there were two others, but we don't have the rights for Unfinished Tales. So.
Yeah, that was brilliant. But guys, before we actually get into the individual details, because we'll probably break down this trailer frame by frame, well, not frame by frame, but like scene by scene, I suppose. But I just want to get your overall opinions. Maybe Dan first. What did you think of the trailer as a whole?
Well, my head's been swimming with information for the last sort of, what has it been, like 16 hours or something. I was excited by it. I think possibly the editing could have been better. Because there are a lot of shots and a lot of short little kind of scenes, if you want to use that word, but they go by very quickly and you can't really tell much, and it's very teaser trailer sort of, not giving away any information or any context for anything that we're seeing.
It's almost like that they had those consecutive shots really like rapidly put together, because they know that we live in an era where that teaser trailer is going to be broken down by people like us or by YouTubers who are just like, pausing frame by frame and saying this exact image is going to be of this, and they don't need more than 1 second, or even in that case, there wasn't even a second. In 1 second, we were getting about 3 images. So it's probably just that in this day and age, that's something that we can expect, but that would never have happened a few years ago. And exactly the word that you used, it is a teaser trailer, and again, we shouldn't lie to ourselves. That's exactly what they're still doing in this trailer. They were still teasing us a little bit and not really giving away too much information.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we still haven't seen. We still haven't seen Celebrimbor, of course, who's going to be one of the main players in this show, I would think. As the forger of the Rings of Power, that being the title of the show, you would think he'd be fairly important. And we haven't seen anything of him yet. They've been more teasing this mysterious, we'll get onto it later, but this mysterious comet character who comes down on a meteor.
Meteor Man.
Yeah.
If you didn't know this was called The Lord of the Rings of Power, you probably wouldn't know what this is about. It's about some meteor man coming to a fantasy world, and like there's no sign of rings, there's no real sign of bad guys in this teaser trailer. But it's a teaser. But overall, were you kind of yay or nay?
Yeah, I was excited by it, but I do appreciate that I'm also, trying to be a Lord of the Rings influencer, so it's kind of my job to be excited by it. So, in a way.
So you hated it.
Well, I'm saying I'm biased. Because I want this show to be a success. I think the trailer could have been better, in all honesty, but it was good. It did the job on me. I got excited, and I did a video breakdown on it last night, and I got nearly everything wrong, apparently, because loads of information came out while I was making the video. I closed off my social media so I could concentrate, and woke up this morning and realised that I'd gotten everything wrong. So
I want to go into that comment section.
So it's doing the job of inspiring people to speculate, people like us.
I think maybe the only reaction video that I watched was yours, and that's all the information I'm going off. So, so damn it.
What about yourself, Johnny?
No, again, similar to Dan. I really enjoyed it. First of all, but again, and Dave, you know this about me as well, that I'm not the kind of person that loves to watch lots of trailers before I go into movies or even before I watch series. I really don't want to be spoiled by absolutely anything. And even sometimes seeing characters in a certain position with a certain type of clothing on, for me, just, I feel like, I don't even want to see that. I want to see that in its moment and in its context. And it's almost like, I don't know, if somebody makes an album musically and you hear one song and it's like, okay, this is a cool song, but out of the context of that album where it's supposed to be created, sometimes I just don't like that, getting that sneak peek where, maybe it'll feel more natural when you get it in its like appropriate context. But I think I'm on the extreme side of not wanting to know absolutely anything about things. So for me, after watching this and still not really knowing too much, I was happy about that. And the most important like takeaway was just visually, it does look quite incredible, and it looks. I mean, I think nobody expected anything else, but the amount of money that we've been hearing is being pumped into this series. We saw the behind the scenes shot of how they made the title reveal, and we could see the kind of camera work and the kind of effects and the practical effects that were put into that. So we know that there's a huge budget and just huge, I suppose, care and importance been put into the way it's going to look visually. So I was happy to see that, and especially some of the big grand sweeping shots of landscapes. They were all quite beautifully done. I had some small details some small issues that we can get into later on, but overall, yeah, I liked it. I'm excited for it, and it teased me. So I feel teased.
That was the goal. Very good.
So that was good.
Is anyone going to ask what I thought of the trailer?
What was your opinion, Dave?
No, that's fine.
But we haven't actually. We haven't, like, all day, we haven't had a chance to speak to each other either.
I know,
What actually was your first opinions?
I was just thinking about it there when you guys were talking, and I was trying to think of a time where I saw an unbelievable trailer and the movie was actually good, because there's been so many times where you see an incredible like I can just think off the top of my head now. I don't want to slam DC, but Batman versus Superman, the first Suicide Squad, and just a couple of those, they showed so much and way too much in the trailers. That was back in that era, 7-8 years ago, when you could just show the entire movie, and like some of those trailers were incredible, but then everything good was in the trailer. So I kind of feel like the less you know, the better. And since this was a teaser, I was pleasantly teased, as Johnny said earlier. I loved the location shots, and I just thought the world looked quite beautiful. And there's little things that we'll get into, and a lot of things where I'm like, I haven't a clue what's going on here, but that's a good sign, I think.
Most of it, about 45 seconds of the 1 minute.
I knew the parts where it said the rings of power and fellowship and king, and no, but
I know what that means.
I think most of the trailer was just trying to show us a lot of the protagonists' faces for the first time. So
sure,
they did that well. So well done, Amazon.
They showed us quite a lot of Galadriel, and I'm more excited to see her story than I was before, actually. I think, which is the most positive thing that I have to say from the trailer.
Yeah. I think we all expected to see a lot of Galadriel, but then I think we also expected to see quite a lot of Elrond, and we didn't really get. We got like a quarter of a second.
We got a frown. That's what we got.
Yeah. I mean, it was a pretty good frown. I felt the emotion from that frown. But yeah, as you said, Galadriel was clearly the one that featured the most, and so we can probably take it for granted that she's going to be the main character that we're going to be following. And we saw her in lots of different areas and positions as well, so she could be moving around quite a bit. But for me, when I first heard about Galadriel possibly being this kind of warrior Galadriel, I immediately got very excited about that. I thought that was going to be really... I was just surprised by all the kind of immediate negativity. Again, I shouldn't be surprised by negativity online because that's what happens. But I was very happy from the get-go with that kind of idea of seeing a more like a younger, fiery, badass Galadriel. I think that's going to be really exciting to see. And doing her whole Jon Snow impression as well.
Yes, yeah. We're going to get into all that, but... I don't know, Johnny, if you want to share the first image of... I'll just... While you're getting that up. We start off with the narration of the young nomadic Harfoot girl played by Markella Kavanagh. And she says, "Haven't you ever wondered what else is out there?" And she had I don't know, did you guys pick up on this? But she had like Samwise's kind of twang. It was kind of hobbity, just like, what else is out there? But yeah, I just thought that was nice and neat. And then we have the opening shot, and definitely my favourite shot from the whole trailer, which is a ship passing through a gateway in the beautiful island of Numenor. And I know this is a podcast, but for the three of us, we can all see this beautiful picture here. Just funny, I just wanted to add as well, when the trailer dropped, I immediately I watched it, then I took a screenshot of this picture. And I tweeted saying, "Welcome back to Middle Earth." And the tweet, like, it started going like doing really well. I got a couple of thousand likes, but then people started responding saying, "This is in Middle Earth. This is not Middle Earth." One guy was like, "It's the one confirmed location," and you couldn't even get that right. And I was like, "I'm so sorry," but yeah. First of all, Johnny, what was your reaction to this shot? Did you immediately know where it was, or like what did you think of the look of it?
It was one of the few things that straight away I was pretty sure I was pretty sure I was like, this is Numenor. Now I don't know which city in Numenor. I'm not that well versed. Maybe Dan will be able to enlighten us later on. But it looks like some sort of like maritime town, some port town in the island of Numenor, and it looks pretty stunning. It's very, very cool. I would like to know a little bit more about this. If it's how much of it is practical effects or miniatures or bigatures, and how much of it is CG added on top, because it looks fantastic. But I don't know. It's always something that you want to know, and the more practical effects that we see used, it just seems like you get a better feel for it. Obviously, in this one tiny shot, it does look really good. The lighting is a little bit, I think it's too perfect almost. So for that reason, that's one of the things I thought where it could have been more CGI than practical, because I just think it seems everything's so visual and so like well lit up, whereas I think more naturally you might have some darker shadows. But yeah, I can't really fault it. I think it looks stunning. I love the statue like built into the like whatever that is, that mound, that little mountain thing. That's really, really cool. And that's
kind of like Argonath.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what they're trying to tease, I suppose. Well, it just screams Lord of the Rings and Garganoth, and that incredible. That's one of the most beautiful images from Fellowship of the Rings as well, when you see the Garganoth, and it's like, wow. So yeah, that's obviously the thing that grabs your attention when you see it first.
Yeah, and Dan, did you think this accurately represents Numenor, or what is your first opinion on this image?
Well, my first thought was this was not Numenor, but
yeah.
I actually I surmised that this was maybe Alquilonde, which is the port of the Teleri elves in Oman, in the west, because with this being a Galadriel-centric story, I thought that maybe this would be her origins. So that was where I was coming from. But yeah, since having learned that this is Numenor, that makes much more sense. So it was my silliness there. The ships don't look like elvish ships, do they, at all?
And they don't have those white ships of the Teleri.
White, yeah.
Yeah. And as you say, the statue there is very Argonath reminiscent, with the outstretched hand, the gesture like that. It's very similar, isn't it? Which is clearly intentional. I wonder who that character is. Could be Elros, potentially. In which case he'll probably look exactly the same up close as the actor that's playing young Elrond. So we'll probably have that confirmed if we do see him up close, because they're twins.
Yeah, that's right.
Do we know if they're identical twins? I suppose they probably
Tolkien
are.
doesn't say, but usually in fan art and stuff, they're always depicted as being identical twins, and it's kind of nice to think of them as being identical twins. Twins run in that whole family as well. I mean, Elrond's got uncles who were twins, who died, sadly, in the Silmarillion, and everyone dies in the Silmarillion.
Spoilers.
and of course he's got twin sons as well, so it's like twins seem to sort of run in the family, which is interesting.
Which is something that happens in real life as well, so that's... It's pretty good, but that is kind of funny that young actor who plays Elrond could, like, you know, it's just really cool for him personally to think, like, I'm obviously one of the stars of this show, but also my face is imprinted in this incredible looking statue that's the face of Numenor. So I just think that must be really cool for that guy personally.
Yeah, that would be cool. And it would be cool for him to have a bit of a Lindsay Lohan situation where he gets to play two characters. But yeah, so looking at this, to be honest, I don't really know any places in Numenor, but do you know where this city could be?
I think it's probably the Ravenna, which is the easternmost port city. It's the largest port in Numenor. That would make the most sense. It could also be Eldorlonde, which is the westernmost port, which is facing towards Oman. But it doesn't look like it, because that should have more of a cliff above it. And Ravenna, the first one, is more of a it's more of a bustling harbour, and it's more
Which this looks like.
Yeah, I think so. I think that this strikes me as more being like the main harbour city in Numenor.
I don't really want to make this reference, but when I first saw this, it looked very similar to a shot from Game of Thrones where, Dave, you'll probably know better than me. What was the name of that place where they had it was like, again, a similar sort of setup to this, but you enter going like through the legs of some giant statue as well.
Oh, yeah, I can't
Is that
remember.
where Arya went to
Yeah.
train or something like that?
The Titan of Bravos you're talking about.
Yes.
Titan,
There
Bravos,
we go.
yes, the Titan. So again, this kind of made me think of that as well. But I don't know. I don't want to say. I don't want to ever say that Lord of the Rings looks like Game of Thrones, where it's it's the other way around, I suppose. But I'm still, again, when I saw this image, I'm really excited to kind of get some footage and zoom into those little houses and those little ports and just see, I don't know, people going about their daily lives in, not Middle Earth, but in the island of Numenor. And I'm excited to be back in the world of Tolkien. And it's 2022. It's going to be a good year.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you talked about you didn't want to compare too much to Game of Thrones, there was so much good in that show as well. So I don't mind saying
That's true.
certain things look incredible, like the way they looked in Game of Thrones also. And good to know we also have a Game of Thrones expert as well as a Silmarillion and Lord of the Rings expert here. The Titan of Bravos. Very good.
There you go.
I've read the Song of Ice and Fire books. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but
Yeah. Oh, well, you've
Right.
read them, no one else. No, I'm only messing. But also,
Our listeners are going to be learning something for once on this show.
yeah, they're always like unlearning things whenever they.
Or correcting us.
Yeah, it's worth it, guys. I'm just looking at this fire thing for the first time. I never really noticed it before. I saw the building on
this
the
here?
left hand side. Yeah, but there's actual flame coming out of that. Does anyone have any idea what this is?
So for our listeners that can't see it, it's the kind of the big sort of, it looks like a bell tower of some sorts, or like I don't know, something you might see in a cathedral. And
But it has like the Olympic flame on top. I'm only just noticing it for the first time.
Olympic flame.
yeah, I actually noticed this flame for the first time this afternoon. Having watched it several times in the middle of the night last night, I noticed the flame this afternoon. There's a story set in Numenor that Tolkien wrote. One of the only stories. Yeah, the only real story that he wrote in Numenor, to be honest, which was half finished, sadly, which is Eldarion and Erendis, which is a story about a kind of failed marriage, basically, which I won't summarise the whole thing. But during part of that story, the king, or the heir to the throne, Eldarion, he does build a lighthouse off the coast of Romena, which is the city that I said this probably is. So maybe it's that.
Oh, wow.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Could be.
There you go.
Well, that's the thing. Like, if they've gone into this much detail, they're definitely gonna be putting in these little Easter eggs and make you go, "Oh, that's the whatever you said there." So yeah, very good. I actually did think it looked quite like La Cinque Terre, is it, where we both visited in Italy?
Cinque Terre in
Yeah,
Italy.
I think it looks quite
With like the things built into the hill.
yeah. It's got that kind of Italian vibe, which
Yeah, especially just right up here, right behind that sort of a statue thing as well. Yeah, you can see they're all just built into that hill, so it looks really cool.
since this is Numenorian, which is kind of like, I don't know, old Gondorian in a way, like same style. And I remember that for Peter Jackson's films, they based a lot of the style of Minas Tirith on central Italy and, I don't know, Florence. And they wanted to say Minas Tirith was like the Rome of Gondor, basically. So I just think there's a lot of nice connections here. It kind of looks a little bit like Italy.
But even as you said, Dan, like you are maybe one of the, I mean, maybe the general population don't know that story about the building of the lighthouse. But for you then as a fan, maybe they're not going to reference that story, but just the fact that it's there in the background, you could like see that and feel more like, oh, this is actually the world that has been lived in. And it is actually more the world of Tolkien. So they didn't need to go into that detail. But the fact that they are doing that means that maybe they're trying to leave these little Easter eggs or leave these little touches and details for the fans who know even more than the regular viewers. So I like, for all the negativity and things that people are complaining about online, I see a lot of positivity, and I see a lot of I've always been relatively optimistic about this show, and all of these little details just make me just kind of encourage me and keep that optimism going. So I'm very happy with all that.
Yeah. We can probably move on to the next shot. We can skip this one and just go straight to the Harfoot. Basically, we get this panning shot over these two nomadic hunters and beautiful landscapes before our little Harfoot says, "There's wonders in this world beyond our wandering. I can feel it." And we get our first glimpse of the Harfoot, which is this little creature here. So, Johnny, what did you think of this creature with the horns coming out of her? Is that horns? It's supposed to be like an ancestor to a hobbit, but I don't know. It kind of looked like something from Narnia. What did you think?
Yeah, that's immediately Narnia was the thing that I kind of got in my brain when I saw this image, and I was wondering, first of all, what are these antlers, or what's happening? I think it's just some sort of headdress that she's wearing.
We're going to get to antlers in a minute.
Oh yeah.
Or if we skip past those, I think we skipped past those.
We just skip past the antlers there. Yeah.
I mean, you can talk about those antlers because I just have no idea. I didn't even know what to ask about them. I was like, right, skip past.
I've got no problem with those antlers. And again, as I said, like, we're going to see lots of kind of the untold stories of what happens in Middle Earth or whatever. So, I mean, obviously Tolkien built this huge world and told a massive amount of detail and stories in it, but I still feel that we as fans of Tolkien can expect that there's going to be peoples, tribes, cultures that we don't know anything about.
True.
And just the fact that these guys are just random hunters, it looks like, I don't know, maybe they hunt elk and that's their specialty, and at one time they thought, hey, when we're hunting elk, it'd be a good idea to wear antlers as to not scare them, maybe roll around in some elk, feces or something to be able to.
What the hell is afraid of an elk? Oh, maybe lots of things. Let's put this moose to good use.
But hunters always have weird, fashion. So maybe that's something that happened from back in the day as well. So I have no problem with those antler guys. But when I saw this image of this girl who's confirmed to be a hardfoot or a hobbit, I suppose. Harfoot. There's no D, is there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, Harfoot. Okay, Harfoot, hobbit. I was a bit concerned first when I saw the antlers because, as you said, it seemed kind of Narnia-ish. But I think that's actually, well, I don't know. Actually, I just assumed, oh no, it's probably just some sort of a head design that she has on. But what are your thoughts on that, Dan?
Well, it looks like she's got a few flowers tied in her hair to me. Yeah, I don't know if it seems Narnia, but it doesn't seem like a hobbit either. She looks like a child, honestly, rather than a hobbit. I think it's kind of cool to have a female hobbit be front and center, though. So I kind of like the narrative opportunity that they've got there to tell a different story.
It's true. We've already had 2 male hobbits, so we didn't really need any more hobbits, and that's
5 really, including all the others.
But yeah.
No, I was going to say, and so going back then to the scene that we skipped over, what were your opinions on those? Do you have an opinion on those guys with the antlers?
Oh, the antlered men.
Silly.
I don't have a problem with it either, but that's mostly because I'm not a door frame.
I mean,
I don't know. I'm just, it's peculiar. Hopefully, there's a good reason for it. But yeah, we'll find out, won't we?
Hopefully there's a good reason, but also hopefully we don't hear too much about that reason, because I don't want to be spending like half an episode with these guys, and that's why we wear antlers. It's like, okay, great. So, but before we saw those guys, during the scene of them, we did see some pretty cool sweeping visuals of the landscapes of New Zealand, and there's always plenty of time for that in my opinion, in any sort of movie or series or anything to do with Tolkien. I want to see landscapes and I want to see the places of where these people live. So that was very welcomed.
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if you guys, Dan, I know you read the Vanity Fair article that came out with the trailer, Johnny. I'm not sure if you've gotten a chance to read that yet, but they basically just said that those antlered men were basically to put this scene into perspective, or just to give it a grand scale of massiveness, I suppose. So maybe that's the only time we're going to see them in the whole series, but I never really had much of a problem. I just kind of assumed that was something that they used to fend off unwanted beasts or something, and maybe the beasts that they're hunting are so large that they need massive antlers. So yeah, no, I didn't really have any issues, but yeah, I think we're safe to move on to the next thing, because around the halfway point in the trailer we get a beautiful waterfall, and then immediately we get a glimpse of Galadriel for the first time jumping on this big ice wall, which many believe to be the Hel Caraxe. And yes,
the Bifrost.
Yes, the Bifrost. This is ripped straight from Game of Thrones, in my opinion. But Dan, can you explain what the hell's going on here? And also, can you explain what the the Hel Caraxe is to our unfamiliar listeners?
That's what I call it. But yeah, I should start using its correct term, the Hel Caraxe.
Yeah, calling it the Bifrost is actually kind of appropriate, actually, in a way. This is a little bit of an aside, but in the very early version of the mythology that is in the Book of Lost Tales, there actually was a rainbow bridge that connected Middle-earth and Aman.
There you go.
That he did rip directly from Norse mythology and then thought better of it in the end. But no, the Hel Caraxe is the sort of bridge of ice at the top of the world that connects Aman and the north of Middle-earth, and it's in the books. It's the route that Galadriel takes to not just Galadriel, but the Noldor, the host of the Noldor, together take to escape Aman. The story is quite complicated, but essentially there's a rebellion against the Valar, who are sort of the gods of Middle-earth in a way, and Galadriel follows that rebellion for her own reasons, in a way. And there are different stories that Tolkien wrote about this, so there are different versions of this story. So yeah, this was my first thought as well, that this was the Hel Caraxe, which is the grinding ice, and it was thought to be impassable by the elves until Fingolfin and his army, of which Galadriel was part, crossed that bridge of ice. But you mentioned the Vanity Fair article. They were claiming that this is not that, and that it was actually the Forodwaith, which is the frozen waste at the top of the Middle-earth map, the Third Age map and the Second Age map, and that she could have been pursuing evil in the north, that she was trying to prove that evil wasn't defeated forever in the First Age. So in other words, she was up there looking for Sauron, presumably.
Yeah, because it does say in that Vanity Fair article that most people believe that there isn't any evil or something along those lines, and basically she's going out of her way, and people kind of think she's a bit of a crazy one. I have a quote from the article that says, "Her mission is to eradicate any trace of evil that cost so many lives, including that of her brother Finrod during Morgoth's tyranny in the First Age." So we get a little bit of a glimpse into what her actual goal and ambitions are in this show. So yeah, I think this is a cool opening shot. I did see someone on Twitter saying, what video game is this from? And when I look at it, I am a little bit like, yeah, maybe they have a couple of months to touch up their CGI, but yeah, I don't know. What did you think, Johnny? Did you like the look at this brutal looking Galadriel?
I mean, yeah, no, I do, and as I said earlier in the episode as well, I really from the minute I heard that this was possibly going to be the way that the series was going, following a younger, more, I think they called her Fiery or something in the Vanity Fair episode as well, or Vanity Fair article. So I like that idea of following a younger Galadriel who's more kind of, I don't know, driven and more of a warrior kind of Galadriel kind of thing. I like that idea in general. I have to say that this is one of the shots that, I mean, it looks really cool, but also when I first saw the trailer, I thought, I'm not too sure if she looks in her face that she's actually struggling to hold on to the handle of a dagger while like gripping to the edge of a cliff of ice. So it doesn't look like, also her arms are like a little bit bent. So it just, again, I know elves weigh like nothing, but imagine you're hanging on to something. Your arms aren't going to be bent; they're going to be like completely straight because you're going to. Well, I don't know. Maybe Dan, you can correct me on this. Like for an elf that's hanging or like doing a chin up, is it just the same as doing absolutely nothing, or do they actually feel the weight of their own bodies?
Well, she's wearing armor as well, so you'd have to think that she's fairly weighed down. It's from that point of view, it is interesting. And yeah, as you say, maybe the visual effects aren't quite right here. Maybe they've got some color grading that they still need to look at, or something along those lines. I actually wanted to talk about another couple of details in this image, though.
Sure.
Which I appreciate your viewers can't see, but they probably have seen the trailer. There are a couple of emblems on her shoulders there, which are 8 pointed stars, which is the emblem in the books of the House of Feanor, who is another Noldor elf. But Galadriel is not part of that house. Her father was Feanor's half brother, so for her to be wearing those is a bit unusual.
And if this is the Helcaraxes, she would have just been like betrayed by Feanor recently before that.
Exactly.
Isn't that correct?
Yes. So I think that what they're doing here is that because we've also seen the same emblem on other elves, including Gil-galad. So I think they're kind of using that emblem as a symbol of the whole of the Noldor. Seems to be. The other thing, of course, as well, that dagger is the same dagger that we saw in the poster image of her hands that she's holding, which has the 2 trees of Valinor on the pommel there.
So cool.
So that's a nice reference as well.
Yeah, it is a beautiful looking dagger, and her armor is also quite cool. She does look a little bit like someone from Monty Python with the armor. It's a bit clunkier than what we're used to seeing in Peter Jackson's films, like just looking at the elves, because I did see someone saying like, why are these elves looking so weird? And yeah, kind of have to put into perspective as well that this is thousands of years before as well. So if things don't look like Peter Jackson's, then there's reasons for that too. But also straight after this shot, we get the shot of Galadriel with her castaway friend Halbrand, who is actually a new character, and they are on a raft in the Sundering Seas. And I think the visuals are quite good. They're actually brilliant. I was really impressed with it. But I have heard that this is completely new, and there's no story with Galadriel in the seas at all, especially not with any character called Halbrand. So,
I mean, obviously, it looks pretty good. I like the scene. I like the shot of the boat going through the water. It's going through those giant waves. It looks pretty terrifying. I am like terrified of the idea of being on a ship in a storm like this in the sea. It just absolutely freaks the shit out of me. So,
it's not fun.
and this guy on his raft that he made, I don't know. There's so little information. I don't think I have anything that I can even say about it. This shot looks like the color grading has been done maybe a little bit better than a couple of the other shots that I've seen. So I like the kind of dark, almost like moodiness in this shot as well. At nighttime at sea in a storm, that's going to be probably quite a scary scene. So yeah, I like it. But again, I don't know anything about it. I know that this is an original character. I've got no problem with this type and this inclusion of new characters into the series as well. I know that a lot of people have big issues with that and they don't want anything except the original material. Me personally, I don't mind it as long as we know that from the start as well. It's going to be including new characters, and it's going to be taking some of the parts of Tolkien's world that we love, but then it's also going to be including other things. I understand that. I understand how that's how a series like this has to be. And even the big changes that we'll probably speak about later with the compression of the timeline, again, I don't have a problem with it really, because it's kind of unavoidable maybe in terms of creating this type of a narrative. So
or maybe they could have just given us like 1,000 seasons, which I would have been all for as well. So I don't know. But what do you make of the scene, Dan? Do you think Galadriel is going to be doing some things that we don't see her doing in the book?
Yeah, undoubtedly. Yeah, she doesn't ever get stranded at sea in any version of the stories that I'm aware of. There is a version where she does sail from Aman to Middle-earth instead of crossing the Helcaraxes. This is. But yeah, I don't think this is that. This is clearly a new storyline that they've come up with for her. Yeah, I like it though. It's convincing, as you say, Johnny. It's like the lighting's good. The CGI looks good. I mean, they shot this in a massive aquarium, so it's very much practical as well. But I like it, and I'm intrigued by this character as well. I like the look of him, and interested to see where they go with that story.
Yeah, who knows? It could turn out to be a fan favorite, and it is funny because a lot of people did complain with new characters being added because there's so much lore to take from the Silmarillion and from Unfinished Tales and or wherever, even the appendices. So a lot of people wonder, why did we need to add new characters? But look, they have a story figured out, so let's hope that the story's good and these characters slot in like jelly. So
yeah, let's trust the process, guys.
Trust the process. No, let's trust the process. The next few shots are all quite quick, but first we're going to look at Arondir, I think is how you pronounce it, and this is the Sylvan elf showing off some bow and arrow skills. I think, Dan, you said in your video, I'm trying to remember, deer is just kind of like a male name or a male thing to have at the end of the name, and Aaron, is that tree, or am I getting mixed up with someone else?
I think it's an elvish root that's in both Quenya and Sindarin that is basically tree. So also he's got the armor with the kind of tree-ish looking man on the front of it, which makes me think of Ents.
That's true, yeah.
So I wonder whether he's going to be connected to the Ents in some way, which should be interesting.
Yeah,
I'd like to see more
cool.
Ent stuff going on in the Second Age, because there's no mention of them anywhere in the Second Age.
Yeah, that's actually very true. It would be cool to see. We saw in Peter Jackson's films how the Ents or the elves taught the Ents how to speak and like they woke them up. It would be cool to see a character. I know we're going to get into it as well. This character does have a relationship with a human, but it'd be cool to see an elf and tree relationship, and not the way that you're thinking, but just like to see how the elves woke the trees up, how they interact with them, and all that kind of carry on. But yeah, actually, before we carry on, what did you think, Dan, about the whole relationship that this man is going to, or this elf is going to be having with a human?
I'm open to it. There are several different unions between elves and men, usually elf women and male men. In the Legendarium, these are two new characters. I think the intriguing part for me is the fact that this is happening in a part of the map that we've never seen before either. In the first Vanity Fair article that came out last week, they spoke about this, and they said that this was in the Southlands in a village called Tir Harad, which Harad is Sindarin for south, and the Haradrim were the guys that had the giant elephants in the movies and the books. So I suspect that this will be a village within the southern sort of part of the world that we haven't really had any stories about before. So that's interesting to me.
Which would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The first part of that village named Tyr as well is it's another root word. It's a verb for to guard or to watch, which we see in the names Minas Tirith, Tyrion, and a few other places as well. So the name sort of means watch over the south, which makes me think that it might be kind of like a border territory that's kind of
that's cool.
There in place to watch for possible invasion or something like that. I'm just I'm speculating here, but
yeah. Oh man,
cool.
Middle Earth is so cool, like, isn't it? Like just where
words
just
but even like
to each other, like,
yeah,
this comes from that. It's just so cool.
I love the names when you hear the name of a place and then they say, well, this comes from this, or just like when we did that before speaking about some of the weapons in Middle Earth, and we broke down the names of like Anduril and things like that, and we were saying like, oh, it's so, and Dave and I were speaking about how we think it's amazing how someone like Aragorn or whoever just gets a weapon and says, I shall call it, and they come up with the most amazing epic name. That's just like how you would need months to think of it.
Isn't it real like shining?
Real is like to glitter
or shine or something like that, like Mithril and
Silmaril. Anduril. Yeah,
Johnny,
I can't remember.
I wanted to ask you about this shot because I know this has a special place in your heart. But does this shot look like, or are we getting?
This one?
Yeah, this one right here, the one of your man with the bow. Are we getting reminders of Legolas's physics from The Hobbit, or do you think this might be better? the way he just catches the arrow in the same.
No, I
motion
don't. I wouldn't say it went as far as like Battle of Five Armies type of maybe ridiculous physics.
In case anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, we're basically referring to when Legolas is running up falling stones and physics just goes out the window. But yeah, in this shot, he catches an arrow. Like, that's pretty impressive, right?
But it's physically possible, I suppose, at least. So it's
true.
not going beyond the realms of physics, I suppose. So I don't have a problem with it, really. And again, I think it's just some sort of a silly, flashy thing that they're putting into the teaser trailer. Again, sometimes you see things that appear in teaser trailers that actually never even feature in the actual series. So maybe this is just trying to get people excited and hyped for like, oh, it's kind of like Legolas 2.0 or something. He's going to be doing similar things. Like, I mean, again, some of the things that Legolas did in the original movies, like sliding down the trunk of a mummicle or sliding down the stairs on a shield. They were a little bit ridiculous, but still,
awesome.
I loved them. And I mean, they were brilliantly done. They were brilliantly shot. Again, that's why I think maybe they just went a bit too far with some of the stuff in the Battle of the Five Armies. But here, I think it still looks cool. I think it still looks nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have any problem with it. I think it's cool. I think it's also cool for younger generations of kids to see this kind of like elf doing these cool tricks with bows and arrows. So yeah, for me, it's all good.
I mean, they're probably trying to establish in the 1 second that they're showing this elf that he is an absolute boss archer. So I think they've done that pretty damn well.
Yeah.
So the next shot we get onto is the famous meteorite, and then also a shot of Gil-galad, it seems here. But first, the meteorite. I know, Dan, you mentioned it as well in your reaction video, but we're getting an awful lot of talk about this meteorite from Fellowship of Fans and just out there in the fandom. But can you explain to us and our listeners what that is and what's going on?
No, I have no idea. I've only heard the same rumours that you have. I know Fellowship as well. I know you've had him on the channel as well. The rumour is that there's a meteor that crashes to Earth and that there will be a mysterious man who emerges from it and that he will meet the hobbits and that he will be kind of an amnesiac. He won't remember his own identity, at least that so it would appear.
Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, it's Jason Bourne.
So that's about all we know about it. We're going to see him, I think, later on in the trailer emerging from a blazing inferno of fireball, and potentially some hobbit is helping him out.
Sure,
but I can't tell you too much more than that. Other than
what are your emotions towards it? Are you excited for it? Are you a little bit worried?
I'm a little bit worried. Yeah,
cautious?
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit worried. When I first heard about this, I thought that this doesn't sound very Tolkien to me. Where have they got this from? People in my comments section on YouTube have been saying similar things. Where this is peculiar. It doesn't seem very Tolkien. The only mention of a meteor that I know of anywhere in Tolkien's works is just this meteorite ore that actually Eöl, who was one of the characters in the chapter that you guys voiced, or that Dave voiced, he was like an armor smith and a weaponsmith, and he forged weapons and armor with this meteorite ore, which the only place...
It's black, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a black. It's called Galvorn, he calls it. It's his kind of alloy that he creates. It's like a black metal. And that technology was lost after the First Age. So as far as we know, there'd be no reason for that to be a plot that they would pick up in the Second Age. But
sure.
But yeah, the character that rides in on the comet would have... Well, the comet, it's more of a meteor, isn't it? He would have to be a superhuman character that would have to be able to withstand that kind of heat and physics. So you would have to think it would be somebody pretty powerful. So some Maya, maybe, or Sauron,
I mean,
maybe.
Yeah. I don't want to say Tom Bombadil because he's supposed to be like older than all of this, right?
Yeah. It's not It shouldn't be Tom Bombadil. I think that'd be odd if it is.
But they did kind of use a lot of words like enigma and I don't know. There was a lot of Tom Bombadil type things.
But I think
associated
I
with this
can't remember
material.
where this came from. But I think a lot of people have been saying that it's been pretty much confirmed that this character could be an evil character.
Oh, really?
Again, I heard that from some places, and again, there's been so much information flying around. I can't remember
There's
if I
so
saw it on
much
Twitter,
information, yeah.
if somebody said it, but wherever I saw it, it seemed like it came from a source that somebody was saying that they seem to be pretty sure. But then again, you know,
That's the internet.
some people just say, I know this is happening, so we don't know. But for me, I agree that maybe like Amaya or maybe like one of the Astari, one of the Blue Wizards is a possibility as well. But then also maybe like the possibility of maybe like a Sauron appearing as Anatar and not knowing his past and thinking he's just some good elf, and then kind of getting his memories back little by little and realizing that he can maybe convince people to do things that they shouldn't do and whatever, and kind of turn them from the inside. Maybe like befriending people initially with completely good intentions, and then like worming his way into his friendships that way, and then after a while kind of becoming evil because he remembers his past or something like that. But I don't know. It's very open to speculation, but I agree with Dan as well that I'm a little bit. This is probably the most. This is the part that I'm most nervous for.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel really Tolkien-esque, like you said, Dan. And that is something that kind of worries me. The whole idea of just a meteor man landing on a planet like from Krypton or something, it just doesn't seem really within the same world. But we'll see. Again, I've been pretty optimistic, and I am pretty optimistic, and I'm hopeful for most aspects of the series. So I'm gonna let this play out. I'm not gonna make up my mind before I get to see any more. So,
I mean, Johnny, you touched on it there about like this possibly being a Maya. Dan, can I just ask, because they talk in the books about, you know, the Blue Wizards coming in whatever, the year 1000, I think it was, but does it mention how they arrive? Like, do they arrive on ships, or they're just like sent from Valinor, right? Or they're sent from wherever?
Well, Gandalf definitely arrives on a ship, because when he arrives in the Third Age, he arrives at Mithlond and meets Círdan, the shipwright, and gets his ring at that point. So, yeah, I assume that they all arrive in the same way. That I wouldn't think that Tolkien would have, had them arrive on a meteor and then not remember their own names. That would be a peculiar way of the Valar to send their messages, messengers.
Maybe they sent like hundreds of them and only like one or two survive, and that's why there's only like 5 Astari.
I have a really important message to tell you guys. Wait, I can't remember what it is. Oh crap.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I just kind of was thinking there. Like,
maybe it is a Kryptonian. Maybe you're right. Maybe
it could be. Johnny, what did you think of this look of Gil-galad?
Yeah, I like it.
He's cool.
Again, I mean, maybe as we said before, maybe they need to do a little bit more color grading. I think the color is quite good. I do think maybe his face is a little bit too. It looks like he's got like perfect makeup. But then again, he's an elf, they are perfectly clean and beautiful all the time. But I do like the look of him with his dark hair and dark features, dark eyes, and. Yeah, I mean, again, it's literally half a second, so it's cool. I like the little golden petals on the ground as well to kind of go with his gold outfit. So, he's looking good. He was like, it's been a gold petal day. I think I'm going to get my gold gear on. And it's going to be...
It's autumn time.
I don't know. Gold Galad.
Any extra insight there, Dan, or is this basically what you see is what you get?
Not really. We don't have much context. We just have, a 3/4 angle view of his forehead and his nice shiny armor, don't we? So there's not much to go on there. I will say this is about as much as we got in the Peter Jackson movies of Gil-galad. Was about half a second of him in the prologue. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of him in the actual show.
We've already got more of him in the teaser than in the entire Lord of the Rings series of movies. So that's definitely a good point.
So moving on, we get another great shot of Galadriel charging on horseback, followed by her again finding a horrible creature and then running away. But first, let's look at this charge. I think this looks pretty cool. Johnny, what are your thoughts on everything
Epic.
here? Epic, yeah.
I like it. It reminds me of almost kind of... I don't know why. When I saw this...
Game of
I was
Thrones?
going to say no. I was going to say remind me of Pelennor Fields
Okay.
when we see Gandalf charging out to with his staff. I don't know why, even though he's on his own and he's charging out to kind of like shoo away the Nazgul. Just the imagery of the I don't know, the mountains in the background, and I don't know, just landscape shots in New Zealand are always going to be incredible. So I like it. Yeah, again, not too much to say about it, but it looks great.
It could well have been shot in a similar location actually to the Pelennor.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, maybe. It looks very similar to the way the White Mountains and the Pelennor look. Wouldn't be surprised.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope they use as much of New Zealand as they possibly can, because I don't know, it doesn't look like they're going to be back there for season 2. So look, we can put that into another podcast discussing why they're moving location. But anyways, on to the next bit. There seems to be some sort of monster or troll thing here. And Dan, what are your thoughts on this? What's going on?
I don't know what's going on, but I think troll is the best fit for what this creature is. I'm going to appeal to Fellowship of Fans again here and say that he actually did rumour this a long time ago, and they reported on this quite some time ago, and they described it as an ice troll, which isn't a thing in Tolkien really, but if Galadriel is up there in the north, adventuring on her own or with a small party looking for evil, maybe trying to track down Sauron, and she encounters beasts up there that were remnants of the armies of Morgoth, that kind of makes sense in a way.
I mean, who's to say that ice trolls don't exist? We've got trolls all over the place. Maybe you've got trolls up a little further north and they're just very cold and they have some icicles attached to them and maybe some extra tusks. So, yeah, I don't mind. There's wiggle room there, right?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, they can invent new monsters. Why not?
Johnny, what do you think of this guy?
Yeah, I didn't know what was going on with his mouth first when I first saw it. I thought it was like some weird, I don't know. I thought it was like his lips had detached from his face or something. And I didn't know really what was going on. I didn't know that they were tusks until you just said the word tusks right now, because they look like some weird, I don't know what they are.
Well, I
appendages.
assumed that they're tusks, maybe.
Yeah, that
Tusks
would
and
make more
horns,
sense.
yeah.
But ice troll, just a very cold troll. So yeah, and again, yeah, I agree with what you said there, Dave. That I don't, if it hasn't been specifically mentioned in the writings of Tolkien, and by the way, there were ice trolls or whatever. If that's not specifically written, I don't mind the fact that they're actually going to go beyond that and invent new, as I said before, new tribes or new peoples, new cultures, and even new types of weird monsters. And we know that the unnamed,
The nameless things. Yeah, that's what
the nameless things. Sorry, the nameless things that there's loads of stuff. There's loads of like monstery things in Middle Earth, in certain parts, in the deep places of Middle Earth that we don't really know anything about. So yeah, I'm not saying this is one of the nameless things. I'm just saying that there are creatures that we, it could have just been a little bit more mutated. And as you said, if it's up north near the like where Morgoth is hanging out and where he's been experimenting on different creatures, sure, why not? This could be just one of many different types of new creatures that they introduce.
Yeah, experimenting is the right word. I like to say that Morgoth had like an evil R&D department where he was just kind of like cooking up different kind of monsters all the time, and there's just like a kind of like a chalkboard of different ideas and stuff, and him and Sauron were coming up with new ways to create more nastier monsters constantly.
Yeah.
So yeah, why not?
And I think there's so many times as well when you're looking at the books by Tolkien and he might just say unnamed evil, or there's evil there, and maybe they're just trying to put a face to the words and actually visualize what some of these things that he doesn't specifically get into. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. But anyways, moving on to the next one. I'm probably going to quick fire some of these because we do see the trailer squashes about 10 shots into like 2 or 3 seconds. So first we get the flashing shot here of the elves in a forest, and I'm assuming that this is the same location where Gil-galad is. But first of all, Dan, do you have any idea where this forest is or what's going on?
Yeah, it's probably Lindon. It looks very similar to the still image that we got from Vanity Fair last week, which the caption told us was Lindon. So
The one of Elrond and Galadriel, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. In the next shot, we get our look at Durin the Fourth. Johnny, what do you think of this guy?
Yeah, I like him a lot. He looks cool. He looks down to earth.
Down to Middle Earth.
Not too much down to Middle Earth. Not too much to say about him. Again, I know that there's some people online that are maybe not happy with the fact that at this time maybe we were more expecting it to be Durin the Third instead of Durin the Fourth, because he was the one who receives the ring. But again, and we'll speak about that maybe a little bit more in a moment, where they do have to compress the timeline a little bit. And for me personally, I mean, again, this is something that we've touched on many times before in this podcast, where because we came up watching the movies, and then later on in life we saw the differences from the books, like the fact that the elves didn't arrive at Helm's Deep and things like that, that we didn't really have a big problem with that initially. And then when we read the books, we were like, oh, actually, it didn't happen this way. That I can understand the reason for the change. It was kind of cool visually. Again, in a similar way, now I know more about the lore, and now I understand the difference between maybe Durin the Third and Durin the Fourth. But for me, I can understand the reason for those types of changes as well, and I can go back to almost my who I was when I went to see the movies. That kind of a detail wasn't hugely important to me then. Now, obviously, maybe there are some people that say the elves should never have gone there and whatever, and I understand that point of view as well. But as we've said, when you don't have that preconception going into something, maybe it's not such a big deal. And they probably know that the wider audience won't really know the differences between all the different Durins, and that the importance of the name of Durin and whatever. But again, details like that, I can understand the reasons for those types of changes. But but this guy personally, visually, I really like him. I think he looks cool.
I mean, Dan, there's obviously a reason for him not being Durin the Third. We just don't know what that reason is, and I assume it's something to do with the compressed timeline, which we'll get into in a little bit. But what do you think is going on? Because of course he's Prince Durin the Fourth, I believe. Durin can't just be like the name of the son. He can't just be like, my dad is Durin, I'm the next Durin, because it didn't have to be like Durin reincarnated, something like that. So there's Durins that come around every, I don't know, once in a while. It's rare for someone to be named Durin, so you can't just throw that out there. But obviously Amazon must have a reason behind this. So does that fill you with any confidence, or are you still a bit bewildered?
Well, it's an artifact of the compression of the timeline, as you say. Durin the Third was, as you said, was the dwarf who was given the Ring of Power for the Longbeards, and I was expecting that to be the dwarf king that we would probably see on screen. Durin the Fourth was the Durin who was present during the War of Last Alliance. So if you're going to depict both of those, you need to pick one or the other. So that's what they've done. So that's what's going on there, basically. It's not, in and of itself, it's not really a big issue, but it's a symptom of the issue of compressing the timeline, which we'll talk about later.
Exactly.
Grand. So moving on, we have our first glimpse of Elrond, and he's looking pure badass, pure, I don't know, Boyzone 1999.
Very, very 90s.
Yeah. What do you guys make of that? I'll let whichever one of you wants to take the floor first.
We'll give it to Dan.
Boyzone.
All right, Dan.
It's. I'm not sure about the context. He looks like he might be indoors, maybe underground somewhere. He's got this odd sort of object in his hand, which I'm still not sure what it is. He was holding that in the poster image that we saw as well. At least I assume it's the same object. It looks like the same thing. Maybe we're seeing the other end of it, because the end that we saw in the poster image looked like it had a kind of palace on the top of it, which some people are suggesting is Gondolin. Others are suggesting that it could be another city, but curious about that. I like the costume.
I really like the costume.
My main overriding emotion about this is that I really wanted to see more of Elrond than this. So they're keeping this tightly under wraps. Perhaps we'll see a lot more of him in a second trailer if we get one.
Yeah, exactly. And I had the same feeling that I wanted to see more of Elrond, but again, this is our first actual teaser trailer of any sort of length. So like you said at the beginning, Dave, maybe they're just trying to introduce the characters to us, let us see their faces for the first time in their clothes, apart from just getting a shot of close-ups of hands. So it's just like very slowly.
Here's an ear.
Here's the name of the show. Here's now some hands holding an apple. Yeah, here's
a toenail.
Now you can see their faces for like a third of a second.
Yeah.
And so it's very like, drip drab kind of information coming out. But again, yeah, like you said, Dan, as well, I'm expecting maybe another trailer to come out within the next few months and get a little bit more, maybe even saying some sentences. That might be nice.
Some actual dialogue would go a long way, actually. Yeah.
But we'll have to wait for that. But I do like, just again, same as Durin, I like the look of him. I think he looks good. I didn't really like the idea of this character, this actor, when I first heard about it, because I don't know, there's something about his visual appearance that I just didn't really like from when he was in Game of Thrones. I just thought he just looks like a bit of a strange guy, and I don't think he looked like, when I saw his face, I just didn't think he looked like an Elrond to me. But in this image, in this shot that we have, he looks very cool. So maybe that's put that doubt to rest.
The hair colour is slightly wrong in terms of the books, but I'm not any more fussed about that than I am about the races of the actors.
It's supposed to be black, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to have darker hair than that, but it's not really a big deal.
Look, it was the 90s. Maybe he just went for a little streak of brown.
Got some highlights.
He was experimenting, so we don't really know. That's what we got.
Sure.
But yeah, one thing that I think Dan mentioned earlier, that we get to see a lot of Galadriel in this trailer. So we get about 5 shots of Galadriel, and maybe that's just because her storyline is what they're most comfortable with releasing or letting people speculate more on. We kind of have more of a grasp of what she's doing, but they're not giving us anything to do with Elrond, and I like that. They're not. There maybe a lot of the Galadriel stuff happens in the earlier episodes, and maybe the Elrond stuff, they're like, oh, we can't really give that away because it's too spoilery. So I don't mind only seeing his face.
And as Dan mentioned earlier as well, with like Celebrimbor and characters like that we haven't seen at all yet, and so there's still a lot to come, and we shouldn't expect to get too much information we shouldn't expect too much from a 1-minute teaser trailer either. So
the one thing that they have said about Elrond is that, or at least that Vanity Fair have said, is that he's a young and politically ambitious Elrond, which is an interesting way of characterizing Elrond. I wouldn't necessarily describe him that way myself. It's not my impression of him as a character, really, but there's a couple of different ways that you could take that. Is he politically ambitious, as in he's is he ambitious in his own self? Is it in his own career, or does he have ambitions as a statesman? Is he connecting different peoples in the map and forging new alliances and that kind of thing? Because I could see him that way very much. Because Gil Galad does that. In the books, there are reports about Gil Galad reaching out to the Númenóreans and that sort of thing, and of course, eventually forming the last alliance. So perhaps that is the context that we'll see Elrond in, but.
Yeah. Or is he going to be politically ambitious in kind of a House of Cards?
Yeah, I can't see that.
Pushing people. No,
exactly. But when I read that in the Vanity Fair article as well, I kind of had a similar kind of, when I heard politically ambitious, it just made me feel almost dirty inside. I was like, I don't know if I like that, but maybe it could be the second option of what you said, which would be cooler and maybe that would make a little bit more sense.
Hopefully, yeah. The next shot we get is of this one here of the queen. This is a queen dwarf. Her name escapes me.
Disa, isn't it?
Disa.
Yes.
Yeah, Disa. But actually, I didn't realize this until I read the Vanity Fair article. But she's actually singing here, and
she's actually what?
She's singing here, and
okay.
What, Dan, you probably remember better, but it's something to do with like singing to the mountain or something along those lines.
Are you talking about the Misty Mountain song in the?
They said something in the article about how the way that they actually carve through the mountains, there was a great deal of singing involved, and they know maybe did I just misread that completely? But anyway,
no, probably not.
Yeah,
I probably just missed it myself. I don't know.
Really excited for that. Really excited to see a lot of Khazad-dûm. So that's going to be sweet.
That's really interesting. I didn't realise that she was singing, but she does look a bit opera singer there, actually, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
She's cool. I do like the look of her for Dwarven Queen.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not get into the beard situation.
Yeah, she looks badass. I like the eye makeup.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it looks like she's happy to get her hands dirty as well and work alongside with the men and get gold all over herself. So that's cool.
Yes, so the next shot is a small one of Galadriel. It looks like she's about to get a haircut or something, but I assume this is taken from the raft as well. So she's with her friend Halbrand, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, so yeah, I don't know if we get a great deal from this shot either. I think it's self-explanatory, but the next shot is the fireball scene, which is, as described, a tall, shaggy-haired man rising out of a burning crater and the Harfoot girl reaching her hand out. So this is the crater man. I don't know, this is where the trailer started getting a little bit weird, but what are your thoughts on this, Dan?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we already kind of covered this a little. He's a mystery. He's supposed to be a mystery. You speculated about Tom Bombadil earlier. If he emerges from this raging inferno of destruction and then suddenly starts singing about his clothing in trochaic meter, then it's going to be quite a short mystery.
Yeah. And I mean, he's, like, no offense to Tom Bombadil, but he's so unimportant in the books. Like, you could just take those chapters out. He's so, like, I don't know what kind of grand scheme they have planned for this character. It
seems like they've been
Tom
saying
Bombadil.
that. It seems like they're sort of teasing again that season 1, this guy's going to be one of the most important characters.
It seems to be the
season,
main, the Hobbit and this Enigma character meeting up. So
we'll have to see.
Yeah, but
and there he is, been born in flames, it looks like. So.
By the way, I don't know, is this spoiling anything for you, but it was confirmed in the article that the two hands at the end of the trailer is actually this guy and the Harfoot as well. So yeah,
in the poster images, he was the one with the apple in his hand as well.
Yeah, exactly. So then finally we get on to some dude smashing an open rock. Who the heck is this guy, John?
I just imagined it was Durin, just showing off his rock smashing skills.
What's he doing?
I don't know. Again, I mean, these are not my own words because it's just something that I heard other people saying. Maybe he has discovered maybe Mithril or something like that, which would maybe make sense.
Or maybe this is part of the meteor from Meteor Man.
Could be. Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
Again, we don't know where his meteor has landed.
They could be completely different locations.
It seems like Gil-galad spotted him coming over, then the Harfoots were there, and then maybe he's up with the dwarves. So it's just he gets around with his, maybe he just carries around a piece of his meteor and says, "Oh, that's the elves," and now I'll ask the dwarves what they think.
I do like the look of those dwarves behind him, though. They all just look very Tolkien.
Yeah.
And it looks like, I thought it was maybe an axe first, but now we've just paused this image, it looks like that's just like some sort of a war hammer kind of thing that he's using to smash it open, if we see that top part up there.
Yeah.
But if I slow it down.
Yeah, it looks like a hammer of some sort. But
well,
then the next one we have is some other dude leaping in chains, and I'm not 100% sure who this is, but do you know, Dan, who this could be? He's got a big axe as well.
Not for certain, but I think it's Rondir again.
Okay, that's the elf, isn't it?
Yes, the elf of the south, the Sylvan elf, played by Ishmael.
That we saw catching the arrow.
Yeah, I think it's him. I don't know if that's been confirmed anywhere, but it certainly looks like him to me.
Yeah, I just immediately thought I thought it was obviously him, but then just now is the first time I've seen that we can't really see his face too well, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
And then this shot is probably the most interesting one, and I think it's been confirmed as Finrod, and he's in a battle, and he's wearing some pretty cool golden armor, and we get to see our first glimpse of orcs as well. And I don't know about you guys, but it does look like they're going for the makeup route, which would please me greatly. So, Dan, what can you tell us about this? What do you know what battle this could be, or what's going on here?
Most likely, if it is Finrod, just to explain to your listeners as well, Finrod is the older brother of Galadriel in the Silmarillion. If this is him, and that does seem to be a semi-confirmed rumour at this point, then this, I think, is probably the Dagor Bragollach, which was the battle in the First Age where the siege of Angband was broken, where Morgoth suddenly burst through the leagues of the Noldor and this was the first appearance of the first dragon. So the dragon Glaurung appears, and lots of lava comes out of the mountains of Angband, and flame. The Dagor Bragalak is the battle of sudden flame. So that's what happens there, and we can see some fire in the background and some explosions going on and stuff. And clearly the elves are losing here as well, it looks like. So that's the most likely candidate.
Yeah, we actually just did an episode on dragons a while ago, and we spoke about the possibility of seeing that battle, or seeing Glaurung coming out, and we were just, I mean, that makes me very excited if that's the possibility of seeing that. So that would be
Finrod was certainly at that battle. In the aftermath of that battle, he was rescued by Berin's dad, and that was where he was Barahir, and that was where the Ring of Barahir stuff comes from. So that was the ring that gets passed through time and space and ends up on Aragorn's finger in the Third Age, and we actually see that in the movies. So that's where that ring came from. So it could be a cool prequel moment to get the backstory of that ring as well.
Yeah, definitely.
That would be deadly. Yeah,
that was also worn by the line of the Lords of Andunier and Numenor as well. So that's something that we probably will see in the show at some point.
Yeah, and it might be nice to get some of the background on that ring, because if you've only seen the movies a couple of times, you don't really know the importance of that ring, I suppose. So it would be cool to learn.
Not magic, but it's much, much older than the Rings of Power are.
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty dope. And this battle looks cool, and I really hope it's not just like a quick glimpse and a flashback, and we actually get a good, decent battle here, because I need that.
And it'd be cool to see a battle where orcs are actually doing quite well against elves.
Yeah.
That could be quite interesting, because normally we just see the elves cutting through the orcs like they're nothing, and maybe the fear
like
in the eyes of the elves when they first see, for example, Glaurung the dragon coming out, where they'd never seen a dragon before, and so maybe it'd be so amazing to see these guys that were so used to like mopping the floor with these orcs, and then they're in a battle and suddenly this dragon comes out, and there's just the terror that must have been on their faces at that time. So I'd really love to see that visualized.
Yeah. So that pretty much sums up the trailer. I think the last shot is the hands. Yeah, we get the hands, and we've already confirmed that this is the Enigma character and the Harfoot, and then we get the title of the Rings of Power. Dan as well, myself and Johnny were talking about this just before we came on air. We're not sure if this is Howard Shore that did the music. I saw one person on Twitter said, before you guys ask, this is not Howard Shore, but do you know anything more?
That guy would be in a position to know. I saw that tweet as well. He is the gentleman who wrote the book on the music of the Lord of the Rings movies, and he's quite a close personal friend of Howard Shore, so he would know. Actually, I didn't need that confirmation personally, because it's clearly not Howard Shore. I was going to say the most disappointing part of this whole trailer was that the music was very generic trailer music.
We said that as well before. It was very standard generic trailer music.
Yeah,
but like, look, maybe they're saving all the good stuff for the next trailer. I don't know. I still feel like a lot of things that people took as a negative from this, I'm kind of trying to see the positives and trying to go, well, maybe they're just holding so much back because there's so much good stuff that they're going to give us. Because we do know Howard Shore is involved, and they didn't use his music here, so
yeah,
even though they did for the announcement of the Ring of Power title, so we know that he is obviously currently working on some new stuff, and Dave and I are always really excited to hear any sort of new Howard Shore stuff. So we were speaking about that before you joined us today, just how the music was a little bit just kind of one dimensional and just like could have been taken from anywhere. Just, I need generic background music for a trailer, and
it could have come from some royalty free music site. Like, honestly,
exactly. They spent all their budget on the visuals. They're like, crap, we don't have any music. Let's get some royalty free.
We spent $1 billion on everything else, and we've got no money. We've got no money for music.
ask some guy on Fiverr to quickly put us on.
Quick, somebody get on the YouTube audio music library.
Well, Dan, before you go, I just wanted to ask you as well about, we touched on as well, the most controversial things that has come out from the Vanity Fair article, which the showrunners have told us, and it's all about the condensed time. So what does that really mean for, I think what they said is it's so that characters aren't just going to be dying each season, but what does the condensed time mean, and what does it mean for the series?
Well, it means that they're depicting. There's three main events in the Second Age, really, and the first one is the forging of the Rings of Power. The second is the downfall of Numenor, and the third is the War of Last Alliance. There's other things that happen in the Second Age, but those are the three main big ones. And they're separated by about 2,000 years in total. So it means that those are going to happen within one human lifetime, basically. I'm a little bit concerned by it on one level, which is that the Numenor storyline is very much about mortality, and it's about how the Numenorians fear their own death and envy the elves their immortality, and that's why they're tempted to invade Aman, and why, spoiler alert, ultimately Numenor ends up under the ocean. Hopefully that's not too much of a spoiler for people who don't know the books, but that storyline is dependent on you feeling the weight of their mortality, and you kind of lose that without the history of hundreds of years, I think. So I'm a little bit concerned about how they'll depict that. And more generally as well, I mean, the history is something that the depth and the scope of the history is something that's so strong about Tolkien's world building that it's be interesting to see how they still manage to replicate that and build that into the world that they're building for this show. I mean, to a certain extent, in a visual format, you can do that just with the nifty visuals. We talked at the beginning about the statue in the Numenorian harbour there, and you get the sense of that being an important figure, and it's very much reminiscent of the Argonath, which gives you that prequel moment and so on. So maybe the visuals will tie that gap. But with you compressing the timeline to that extent, I do feel as though there's something that's lost there. The Tolkienian aspect of the deep time. So that's my thoughts on it, basically. I'm open-minded, and I'm interested to see how they solve some of these problems and what they do with the narrative.
Yeah, well, here's hoping. Like Johnny mentioned earlier, how we wouldn't really know a lot of these facts before going into... I know for myself anyways, I didn't realize how much of a big deal it was until I heard everyone's opinions on it on Twitter about like the condensed time. But yeah, I'm just hoping that it's all for story reasons and it works out for the best in the end. So
yeah, and maybe they can, in some sort of way, through flashbacks or something, show the importance and the relevance of what you were saying we would miss out on in a compressed storyline, where we could see that an elf has lived on for hundreds of lifetimes of other men and whatever other mortal races, and that we can see the importance, or maybe even the emotion on the part of the elves, and how they feel like, you know, they could never befriend or even less, you know, form a relationship with someone that's a human.
That's a big part of the elves, right? Like that's why they don't have relationships. Yeah. Well, that's one reason why they don't have relationships, and why they're so sad and glum and care little for men and their silly ways.
Maybe the relationship between the Haradrim woman Bronwyn and the Sylvan elf, maybe those themes will be explored through that relationship a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe.
True.
We'll see. Right, well, one last thing I wanted to ask both you guys as well. I'm not sure, did you hear... Well, I'm sure you heard, but the Saul... I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. The Saul Zaentz company is selling off the rights selling off the rights to make movies and video games based on The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So I wanted to ask what you guys think of this. Because, first of all, this includes the rights to... TV shows with more than
theme park,
TV shows with more than 8 episodes, live events, merchandise, theme parks, and some rights across additional Tolkien texts, the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, all that kind of stuff. So, and Amazon are being rumored to be sniffing around these. So, first of all, Johnny, what do you think of this? Are you excited? Or
yeah, why not? Again, we spoke about it in a recent episode where there's a possibility that Lord of the Rings could turn into some sort of like the new kind of Marvel cinematic universe with all sorts of different shows like spiraling off and getting little side shows and things like that. And maybe that's for a good. Maybe there's. Well, I don't want people to just completely, squeeze every drop out of the lemon of Tolkien or whatever. But I think that there is enough material there to go around and to do some good work with it. And me personally, just any sort of Tolkien stuff that's going to be put out there, series or movies or merchandise, I'm going to be first in line to gobble that up.
You'll be second after me.
And if it's a theme park in the future, that could be pretty impressive as well. That could be really, really cool. I think we've spoken about that before. How that would be a dream come true type of a theme park. So yeah, very exciting.
Dan, what do you think?
The theme park thing was an eye-opener for me. I had no idea that there was theme park rights that were even out there, that had been something that had been sold to Soul Science already. My main thought is ching money. It's going to be sold for a lot of money, and there's basically two big contenders here that are the obvious ones. It's Amazon, of course, and Disney as well. And I don't know which one I'd rather have the reins to the Lord of the Rings, really.
We'll know better after the series as well.
Yeah, we will.
I think.
You have to think Amazon are definitely interested, and the timing of this isn't an accident, isn't a coincidence.
No, yeah. I know I've asked it a couple of times on Twitter, and it's been met with many responses. But if you guys could design, last question, if you guys could design one ride for a Middle Earth themed theme park, what would it be? Johnny, you start.
Oh God.
Right, while you think, I will just tell you mine. I think the idea of having like a Moria or Khazad-dûm, I should say, themed like mine cart roller coaster thing, kind of like Indiana Jones.
House of Horror.
Where you're in a cart and you're like flying along and you get to see like the mithril being made here and then the Balrog coming out here. I think that'd be pretty dope.
You mean it's just like a museum tour of Khazad-dûm then, isn't it?
But
That'd
that's
be
what
cool.
you want.
Yeah, no, for sure. The Balrog pops out and you have to have a little battle with him. That sounds cool. I don't know, maybe a water themed one, like floating down the Anduin River, or I don't know, something like that.
Dead, like Barber.
Okay, I've got a good one. How about Mrs. Maggot, Farmer Maggot's wife? How about like a mushroom themed like psychedelic ride?
That would be trippy. Yeah.
Oh wow!
And it'd be called Shortcut to Mushrooms.
And you get your own bag of personalized mushrooms.
Very nice. You even have a title. Wow, this sounds like you.
That's the title from the chapter from the Lord of the Rings. No, I haven't thought about that before, but that's my best answer at the moment.
Sounds good.
That
sounds
is
good. At
good.
this time of the evening.
I like that. So guys as well, not you guys, but listener guys, send in your thoughts on what you think would be the best version or the best ride in a Middle Earth themed park. Themed theme park, yeah. But yeah, we've heard Johnny compare Tolkien to a lemon, and we've heard Dan's beautiful English accent. So
makes for a nice change.
That's all we have time for today. Dan, thank you so much for coming on in such short notice as well. We've wanted to have you on for a while. There's so many people we want to have on, but yeah, you were definitely high up there on the list. I really enjoy watching your videos, and yeah, it's great to have you on. Hopefully it's the first of many.
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah. And I'd love to have.
Thanks for doing what you do.
Cheers. I'd love to have you guys on the channel as well at some point for a chat. So we'll keep talking. But yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. Right. It's been good to talk.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun, and thanks for your insights. Because Dave and I have definitely learned more. We're more knowledgeable now than we were an hour ago. So that's always good.
I'm going to forget it all again in about half an hour.
I regret to announce this is the end.
But guys, that's all for today. We will put all of Dan's socials in the podcast description, so please go like and subscribe to Voice of Geekdom. While you're at it, if you don't subscribe to us already, go ahead and do that and leave a review and a rating if you haven't already. And if you want to reach out to us, our links are in the podcast description also. Please let us know what your thoughts on the trailer are, if you're excited or if you're bummed. But yeah, we just want to know. So get those comments in. But until next time, guys, goodbye.